Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm really excited about today's guest. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me, Caitlin.
Yay. So, can you start off by telling our listeners a little bit more about yourself, what you do, how you got into business, just some of your background story?
Yes. So it depends on how far back you want to go, but I have been a psychotherapist for 25 plus years and kind of took some time off to raise. I have three teenage girls, and yeah, never a dull moment around here for sure. And basically, when my youngest went into school full time, because I took a little hiatus and I decided I have to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up again? Because I haven't worked in therapy for so long. Because while they were little, I just kind of got to stay home with them. I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And then really found out a little bit more about life coaching, which is something I'd been introduced to. Um, and just really kind of fell in love with it. Like I love doing therapy. I've always loved doing therapy. Um, but yeah, really just kind of fell madly in love with life coaching. So I got my certification about 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago now. And worked as a life coach for a while. And then during the pandemic, so many people became online service providers and coaches. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's such an opportunity here to really help those coaches and service providers to overcome the mental stuff that was in their way of growing their business and being super successful. And so I kind of got into that niche and have been running with it ever since.
What a great storyline. And I love how you came back and really analyzed, like, what is my next phase that
Yeah.
the most aligned?
Yeah, and I had noticed because I obviously had a business of my own. I was like, what really gets in people's way is their limiting beliefs. And they honestly, the biggest thing that got in their way was themselves, right? They can learn all the things, they can try out all the strategies and do all the things that are necessary in business, but if you don't have that really strong mindset, that really strong confidence, I call it magnetism. A lot of what I talk about is really having that magnetic sense of authority, who you are, feeling really confident when you're talking to your dream clients. If you don't have that, there's no strategy that's going to save you, right? Because
Yeah.
the most important thing I think we have to convey to our clients is that they can trust us. And if we don't trust ourselves and we don't believe in ourselves, it's always going to fall flat. So, yeah. So I saw such a need for that. And I really may have heard mindset is 90% of success in business. And I really believe that's true because there's no way you can out strategize a crappy mindset. So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. Like even this show, we've had it for this is our fourth year or fifth year
oh,
actually.
wow. Congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. And that was a lot of what I talked about at the beginning of the launch of this show, like going to therapy and understanding myself and how was I projecting my own beliefs onto my
Yeah.
business, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
It's so true.
it hindered a lot of the growth. I'm sure you see that a
Yeah.
lot with your clients.
Yeah, well, I believe that I don't just believe this. I see it everywhere. It's very very clear that being an entrepreneur is one of the biggest self-development journeys that you can go on. I would say that and becoming a parent,
Yeah.
those two things really just stir up all of our stuff, all of our limiting beliefs, all of our just anything that's in our way. Like it's a lot of the imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all of these things really get stirred up when we start our own business. And that's why my clients call me their business therapist, because I'm able to really dig deep and help them to identify what are those mindset blocks that they're having. What are those thoughts and limiting beliefs that are getting in their way? And then how can we shift those so they're no longer getting in the way? Because truly, what happens is if we have a thought, we have a feeling that comes from that thought. And because of that feeling, we take action or we don't take action. And as you and I both know in business, Caitlin, you have to take action, right? In order to grow your business in order to be successful. And so if we're not taking that bold action and we're not feeling confident and really putting ourselves out there consistently over time, obviously you've been doing this podcast for a really long time, like you've got to do that. And entrepreneurship can just bring up all of our deepest, darkest fears and doubts about ourselves. So we have to get over those so that we can be consistent, so that we can keep showing up for the people who need us. So yeah, I'm yeah, clearly I'm an advocate for for doing the mindset stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that even in my own experience, like speaking for myself, I didn't realize how much of a personal development journey
Yeah.
entrepreneurship would be until I
Yeah.
was in the thick of it. And
Oh
it was
yeah.
kind of like sink or swim. Like,
Oh yeah.
burn the business down. I talk about this all the
Right.
time on the show. Walk
Yeah.
away and get a corporate job or
Right.
swim through the
Yeah.
that was really happening in my brain, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it felt so external, which I think is really interesting how we
Right.
internalize that.
Yeah, it does. And I think it does feel like it, yeah. And I think what you just said is so really I don't know, it's just so apparent. Like we don't think that it's going to be such a deep journey, right? We don't go, nobody tells us that, right? Like nobody tells us how hard it's going to be at times. And we go into it and we see all these like success stories on social media and we think, oh, we're just going to like hang up a sign and say, hey, this is what I do, and people are going to start flocking in. And it's not always like that. In fact, most of the time it's not. So really like having that, I think, deep like sense of self and being able to really roll with the ups and downs of it, because it's a roller coaster ride. And if you can't if you can't handle the ups and downs, like you do want to throw in the towel, you do want to just burn it all down and say this is too hard. But if you're doing the mindset work and you're having someone, yeah, I think like having a mindset coach is huge, but having someone who can help you through those ups and downs can make all the difference.
It's such a good point because I think we hear all the time in entrepreneurship how lonely this journey
Oh yeah.
is. And that's what I love about what you offer and really being this companion, like along
Yeah.
this journey with your clients, because it does feel like we're putting our lives out there, then our families, there sometimes
Yeah.
can be a disconnect. I was very fortunate that my family was very supportive, but I see
Yeah.
it all the time in my clients where that's not how it works
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand building a business and why can't you be available all the time like you
Yep.
used to be, and you must not care about this relationship. And we start
Right.
to have to like pick ourselves at times,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really
Oh,
uncomfortable.
so true. Yeah. Oh, it's totally uncomfortable. Yeah. And all the guilt that comes along with that, right? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, you have to choose your business sometimes first, because yeah, I mean, it's our lifeline, right? Like we have to have our business being successful. But yeah, there's such a balance you have to find. And I think so often too, entrepreneurs think, I have to really, really work super hard all the time. And it's not really about that. And I think that's one of the misconceptions. Like we believe that we have to like be working 24/7 or we're never going to be successful. And the truth of the matter is it's not. Like there are, like, you do have to work, you have to put your time and effort in. But if you're super clear, and this is one of the things that I teach in my program, especially in my membership program, is like when you can get super clear first and really confident in what you're doing, consistently making those connections over time, like you don't have to work all the time. Like you can actually work, when you want to, and you can set your own schedule, because we didn't become entrepreneurs to, have to work like 80-hour weeks. We did it for the freedom. We did it because we want that flexibility in our lives. And there is a way to have that flexibility, but you've got to get in the right mindset, and you have to make sure that you're focused on the right things at the right time in order to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. It's funny because this show has kind of seen this arc of my
Yeah.
journey. So it's
Yeah.
perfect that you're touching on this. I really almost burnt the business down because I
Yeah.
didn't think there was a solution, and you
Yeah.
described, I started my business for freedom and to spend
Yep.
time with my family, not deter time from them. And
Yeah. Yeah.
really have to like cut people out of my life. That's so not who I am. So
Right.
it
Right.
was really hard and challenging. But now I have a team of 10 people. And like
Yeah.
you said, it's kind of a balance where they hold me accountable, I hold them accountable. And
Yeah.
I really work maybe 3 to 4 hours a day.
Amazing.
But
Yeah.
in that time frame, I'm sure you're in the same boat too. It's like we're working, like we're
Yeah.
really in it. We're in the thick of
Yeah.
it. There's no like breaks being had for me. That's just the way I operate.
Yeah.
I'd rather just knock it all out, in a quick 4
Yeah.
hours and then get back to what I need to do in my life.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. I think everyone has to, because like it is our own business. Like I think everyone needs to figure out what works for them. And like we're not like nobody's really teaching you that, right? So I think getting really in touch with yourself, getting really clear on like okay, what feels really good for me and what doesn't feel good for me and like trying to do more of that, right? Because you don't need to work a crazy schedule. I think you can totally build a super successful business working 3, 4 hours a day. I think that's very doable, but you have to figure out how to really I don't want to say it's not necessarily about time management either. I think it's more about energy management. It's about figuring out when am I going to be able to really give my all to my business because you have to. And that's why I talk so much about being magnetic. Like your clients are going to be able to tell if you're exhausted and you have no energy left, right? When you're on social media and you're doing a training or you're putting out a post, like you want to be in your magnetic energy when you do that. And then the other things that you don't need the energy for as much, you can put those off until later. But I think it's really important to be able to manage your energy in a way where you don't have to be constantly working because that's just it's first of all it's no fun for anyone. Second of all, it's just not effective. Like working these long hours is not effective. None of us are meant to do that, right? So we just have to really like tune in to what we need and what lights us up and really just like run with that, right?
Yeah. It's like stop looking externally. That was
Yes.
really what I had to do. And I'm sure that this is what you help your clients with. And I want to get even more in depth into what you offer. And you mentioned a little bit of how you support them. In my experience, it was like detaching from the social media
Yep.
ideologies of what a business owner should be.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even detaching from like, what my amazing community perceived me as working all the
Um,
time, and
yeah.
always on and this businesswoman. And I
Yeah.
really had to like strip all of that down to just figure out who I am and
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
actually wanted, which
Yeah.
was just to work a few hours a day and
Yeah.
make a great salary,
Yeah.
that I pay myself, be my own boss, not feel like I'm giving all of my ideas to another company to build it,
Yeah.
was like
Totally.
came down to values really for me.
Yeah.
So I would love to know how you help your clients, almost get back to the basics to rebuild them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have lots of different, not lots, but I have a couple different programs. We talked about one earlier. I actually took what my clients were calling me and turned it into my one-on-one program, which is called business therapy. And so that's where we really dive in, help people get to know just what you're talking about, like what works for them, what doesn't work for them, helping them really overcome the blocks that are standing in their way so that they can have the most successful, not just business, but life that they want to have, right? Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're able to really get in there and dig deep and get over the things that are in your way, like it's going to overflow into all the areas of your life. I also have a membership program where we do talk about fundamentals. It's a group program where we talk about I call it my magnetic coach method, which is my 6C method, which starts with getting super clear. Then we work through into getting super confident, all the way to the end where we are celebrating our successes, right? And so it's based on that method, but it's a group program. So you get lots of support along the way because, we're all struggling with the same things. And like you pointed out earlier, Caitlin, this can be a lonely journey. And so I want to really help people know that they're not alone. Everything they're experiencing, even though it feels so lonely and we feel like, oh my gosh, we're the only one who's going through this, it's so not the case. We have so many commonalities as entrepreneurs. We go through the same kinds of struggles, the same kinds of mindset blocks and limiting beliefs. And so again, that program is very mindset based, but it's also really helping you to focus in on what's important and what's not important in your business so that you don't have to work yourself to death, so that you do have time and freedom. All my programs are about freedom because that's what we need to be doing, and getting through those rough times, breaking through those limiting beliefs, breaking through the hard moments in entrepreneurship. And I think sometimes as women especially, we think we're supposed to be able to do it all on our own, and we're really not. It's not it's not going to be fun. It's not going to save you time if you're doing everything on your own. I think if you can really, even in the beginning of your business, understand that things are going to be tough and reach out, get some help for that accountability, get some help for that support and guidance, because that is going to make it go so much more smoothly and so much more quickly, instead of having to go through those moments where you're like, I don't even know if I can do this anymore. So yeah.
I think it's great what you mentioned too about reaching out and asking for help. I believe if I would have done that earlier,
Yeah.
I probably could have scaled the business faster and
Yeah.
maybe even released some of the shame that was around,
Yeah.
hiring people. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because once you kind of get on the other side of it, and now I'll tell people like, yeah, I have a team of 10 people that
Yeah.
are contractors, and they're like, wow, like it almost builds your credibility. But you
Yeah.
think when you're in it at the start, it won't. It will like
Right.
deter people from working with you. As long as it's the right people and you're able to
Yeah.
pour into them,
Yeah.
that's what I think I've found a great sweet spot with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, I will say any great coach, not even just coaches, any really successful person has a great coach in their corner, right? And this goes for, I think, almost anything, right? From entrepreneurship to, obviously sports people have great coaches in their corner, but Oprah had a great coach. It's like everyone who's really successful, they know they don't need to do it on their own. And I know it's hard because in the beginning of business, you think, well, I don't have the money to hire a coach. I don't have enough, resources, but really it does help it go, like you just said, more smoothly, more effectively, and it takes a lot less time that way. And so you're going to see the results a lot more quickly.
Yeah, and for our listeners, you've created so many different amazing offers too. Like you can join the group if you want more community or do more of the
Yeah.
one-to-one work with you. So, yeah, I just really appreciate that you offer both. And even for anyone listening that's maybe thinking, I don't have the money, it's worth the investment. It's also a business write-off. It's all the
Yeah.
way you look at it, you know?
Yeah.
So reach out to Jennifer. Can you tell us how to connect with you and what's the best way to find out more about your programs?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll drop some links below this episode. But yeah, I'm definitely on Instagram at J Jakobsen Life Coach, and it's Jakobsen with a K, which is a little bit different. I also have a Facebook group, the Successful Coaches Collective, and you had mentioned my networking call. I have a weekly, I call it Coffee and Connections, and it's a networking call for any coach service provider who's sick of doing it alone and they want to connect with some other people. So yeah, it's a great way to network, meet some other people who are like-minded in the same boat as you. And it's a great way to like get to know each other and refer each other as well. So I do that once a week, every Thursday at 11 Pacific time. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, and one more time for our multitasking listeners, all the links are in our show notes below. Message us if you have any questions or if you'd like me to connect you all with Jennifer. I'm happy to do that as well. Thanks so much for
amazing.
being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So much fun to chat with you as always.
Yay. Likewise.